Hello and welcome to another episode of Sales and Pepper Interviews. Here's Dominic, your podcast host. And today we have another English episode. And I'm very happy to have Bruna here. She was the former CPO of Bikemap, now starting her own business. And I'm really looking forward to this discussion because today we want to talk about the alignment between teams and especially between sales and product teams. So welcome, Bruna.
Hi, Dominic. Thank you so much for having me on the podcast. I'm really excited to talk about this. That it's such a recurring problem in so many companies nowadays.
It is. And thanks for taking the time, Bruna. And I'm really happy that you reached out on LinkedIn to discuss this because, as you already mentioned, this is like an ongoing problem I've seen in many, many companies already. And that's why I'm really excited about this discussion today. But before we start, maybe you can give us a little bit of a background of yourself, like who are you, what have you done so far in your career, and what are you doing now?
Sounds good. Thank you. Yeah, to start, my name is Bruna and Bruna de Guimarães for people that don't know how to pronounce it.
Like me,
it's a Brazilian name. Yeah, I come from Brazil and I often have this issue with my name. No one knows how to pronounce it here in Europe, but I love the challenge. So it's always a fun start of a conversation. But as I said, I come from Brazil originally, and I have a different background. I studied law, and I became a lawyer, but did not enjoy it all working in the legal world, and landed by accident in software. I started my career at Pipedrive for people that know about it.
Nice.
Pipedrive at the time was a very small company, and they wanted someone to do some market analysis for them. And I started doing that, and it was a fun summer project until they asked me to open the business development team. And I told myself, well, what is business development? I don't know what that means. And as I mentioned, the company was so small at the time that the CEO told me, hey, let's do this together. I'll teach you everything I know. And until today, he's one of the biggest mentors for me in my career. And as everybody know here as well in this podcast, business development is a very broad term. It can mean a whole different bunch of things. And in that case, it was really about discovering new markets and adapting the product into new markets and creating a strategy for new markets. So that was also my first connection to product. So it was really about not selling the same product to every country. It's really about understanding the market, understanding the user needs, and adapting this strategy as well, creating partnerships, integrations, and so on.
Yeah.
And that was my start into the product world, into the software world, and been growing through that through different CRM companies, very much focused on SaaS, so in the software world, and built my own business, also consulting for a couple of years and coaching product managers and companies that are in need to help bridge this gap, as I said, from sales and product, because constantly there is a miscommunication that happens there. And as you already mentioned, there is a strategy being built just for sales, and there's a strategy being built just for marketing or just for product, and not really a communication happening around that.
Yeah, and also different goals and KPIs, right? I think that's also something I see a lot. Yeah.
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
But super interesting. I can relate a lot, especially for the lawyer thing. I never studied law, but I can relate that you didn't like it. It's very boring for me as well. So happy that I landed up in sales in the end.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think what is interesting also what you just mentioned is this whole business development topic. So I think that's also something I would recommend many companies, that it's not very clear often, because sometimes it's an SDR, right? Especially people from university thinking, hey, I want to go to business development because then I can do all the strategy, and then they're ending up in sales and need to call people and very disappointed. So I think that's also something we need to think about, how we communicate and describing the roles, right? And I think what you just described, I also saw a lot in different companies called market expansion. So I think it's so different sometimes. But today we want to talk about the product stuff. So Bruna, maybe as a beginning, as a start in this conversation, maybe you can share what are like common mistakes you're seeing? Like we said, like there is a gap, but in communication. But what are the common mistakes you can see there?
Yeah, there's a couple. One of them to start. I mean, you start your company, you start building your team, and maybe you even before you receive a seed or a seed investment, or right after, and you're preparing for Series A, and you realize that you have a problem, and one of them is salespeople are constantly on calls talking to users, and they say, I need to implement this feature in the product, or else I won't be able to sell it to my customer. And it's priority number one. This is the thing that we need to do. And then they talk to the tech side, and the tech side says, it's so complicated to build this. I cannot do it in 1 week. I cannot do it in 2 weeks. You don't understand how this works. Or they tell salesperson, says, hey, I can do this in 1 week, and it's not there in 1 week. And there's a problem. And then it's delayed again for 1 more week, and your customer is on the other side, frustrated and not understanding. And he said, but you promised me that this feature would be there a week ago, and it's still not there. The same thing happens on the tech side. The tech side doesn't understand why that feature is important. And they're constantly communicating this to the sales side and saying, hey, I don't know why we're building this feature. Or we built this feature and we don't even sell to that customer in the end. It was done for nothing. Or we made this feature and really it's not bringing enough revenue. It's not bringing enough data for our product. So constant mistakes like that on a day-to-day basis create actually a really big communication flaw, and something that actually impacts the revenue in general of the whole company, and the whole strategy of the company.
Yeah, I think also what I've seen a lot is the problem that you normally, like in sales, let's say you would take a normal account executive and he has like 10 demos and 5 of them say, I want to have this product or this this feature. For him or her, maybe it feels like, okay, this is like a super important feature we need because 50% of my customers want it. But on the other hand, there's maybe like 20, 30 other reps when nobody's actually asking for that, but another feature is way more important for them. So it's also, I think, getting to understand, like in sales, getting people to understand that it's all about the data in the end. You just mentioned it. And then we also at Pleo, we had like our chief product officer, she once said like garbage in, garbage out when it comes to data. So if you're not providing the right data for us, we cannot really develop the right product for you guys. So I think that it's always a communication issue. I think that's quite clear. But what would be your recommendation? Like, how have you seen, or maybe first question, have you seen companies where it worked well? And if so, what would have they done differently than other companies?
Yeah, I think there's 2 points here. Is one of them is management, right? So as a C-level of a company, as a leader of the company, you need to know where do you want to go with the company? What's your vision for the company? And that vision is not only a company vision, or I want to achieve X, Y, Z of growth, of ARR, or EBITDA. It's really regarding as well the product vision that needs to walk hand in hand together. And that's where you actually first start building this process, because you constantly have a CEO and a CTO, and they create different strategies. And you actually need to have a person that it is aligned and guiding the company into the same strategy and the same vision. And then that's displayed in a different perspective, in different tree branches towards their own departments. This is number one problem that I see, normally management being not aligned together. So if this is solved already by product vision and a company vision being created and aligned together, that already helps it already helps the product and the problem that we see. Number two is when the company is already bigger and you lose a little bit more of this connection, it's the product manager's job. So I often see companies hiring product managers that are very unexperienced, and then they don't have anybody to help them, to guide them, or them hiring people that are not really knowing how to communicate, or not having even a product manager, or giving this responsibility to engineers, or giving this responsibility to sales, or giving this responsibility to marketing. And I often like to say that one of the biggest solutions to this problem is a good product manager. Is a product manager that knows how to communicate with all of the sides. Because in the end, a product manager is like a mini CEO of a company that needs to really be able to not only own the product that they are working on, but also be able to communicate with all these stakeholders. So be able to talk to salespeople and understand their necessities, being able to talk to marketing people and understand their necessities, and the same thing with tech. Yeah. And one last thing is understanding the user, aligning on who is your user. Because as you correctly mentioned before, you have one sales rep that's talking to so many people, and they think that this is the solution and they need to implement XYZ feature to move forward. But maybe this is not your ICP. Maybe this is not the right user for you. So having this aligned as well throughout the company, and constantly reiterating on what is your user, who is your user, and are we actually filling the problem for this user, it's really important.
Yeah, I agree. And I think what I've seen also at Pleo is that great product teams actually enjoying also talking to the customer, because this is also something I saw a lot in the past, that they're like, oh no, I don't want to come into the sales call. But the best product people actually enjoying this and like trying to interview people as much as possible to understand their needs. And then also what you mentioned, like not coming like from sales side, not coming up with a solution, but more with the goal of the customer, right? So what you want to trying to achieve, and not he wants feature X, but he wants to be more productive with this and that. And then the product team can think about the proper solution for that. So I think that's something I really love that Pleo. And also we had like weekly product updates, and then they were really exciting, and like, you know, kind of a weekly cinema night. Everyone is sitting there having a drink, and then, you know, it was very entertaining. So you enjoyed this and getting the updates. So I think it's also, I agree a lot about the culture, about communication between the teams, right? How do you make it interesting for both parties?
Yeah, you're partners on this. You're partners on this problem. It's really thinking about the problem. Like as you mentioned, I mean, it's not the feature. You don't want to implement like this specific feature. You understand what problem your customer have, and then after talking to many people and to many customers, you actually, and the product manager, the UX and UI team, they create a concept to solve this problem. Because sometimes even the user doesn't even understand. Like they say, I want feature X, but maybe it can be solved by another feature because they don't understand. They don't know exactly what the problem is. And so this is one of the things. And as you correctly mentioned, it's so cool that you did in Pleo. We did a lot this in Pipedrive. We did this in Shore as well here in Munich, is bringing these sales teams and product teams together. So for example, doing these sales calls together, or for example, doing the reviews. So you have a new feature and then you put everybody together in the company to watch it and to discuss it and to get feedback. Is it really solving the problem? Is it really solving the why of why we're doing this? Is there something we can do better? It's supposed to be a partnership. It's not supposed to be a competition.
Yeah. On the other side, I also understand that there can be a lot of frustration, especially like also on both sides. I think you mentioned it already. Let's say the sales team asking for a certain feature, and then product says, hey, you're going to deliver by date X, and then the product is not like ready for it. And then you're telling the customers all the time, it's coming, and then it's not coming. So you're losing trust. And this is the worst thing that can happen for a sales guy or girl, right? So I think losing trust with the customer is like it's a big thing. So on the other side, I can also understand product teams when the sales team is always like, you know, asking for when are you going to deliver it, and then maybe the strategy changes, and then they don't develop the thing. So they're also building this kind of, you know, wall and don't want to communicate it. And it's like, okay, we will not communicate anything to the sales team because they're getting on our nerves, right? So I think question to your side, like what's the solution for that problem? Because I saw that a lot in the past.
Yeah, that's a great question, and yeah, it's a really recurring problem, and we have a running gag in the product management field that we always say it's in the backlog, and when it's in the backlog, it's just there, and we don't know, and it's easy to just say it's gone. Yeah, it's in the backlog. No, it's if I would have a golden formula for that, I would be very rich.
Yeah, that's true.
So that's just keeping it very clear.
That's true.
It also depends on the company. It depends on the teams. But the most important thing, as I said, unfortunately, is communication. Is creating a process around it that you can constantly keep them updated, and also make sure salespeople understand the process of product development, and also the product development when giving estimations that take in consideration as well these times and buffers, and that there is a user in the end that needs this, and that there is a need for us to make revenue, because or else the company will not sustain and will not keep running. So really bringing these teams together and understanding why they need each other and why things work the way they work. It's one of the small solutions that we find on a day-to-day. So these small workshops of salespeople shadowing the product managers, shadowing or being part of one of a roadmap meeting, understanding why does it take so long? Why does sometimes we say it's 1 week, but it happens that it is 2 weeks or 3 weeks. And the same thing with the tech side of saying, hey, can you see this customer? If I don't deliver this to this customer, we're not going to close it. And therefore, it's going to bring us a debt, or it's going to bring us a loss, or we're not going to reach our forecast. And therefore, we're not going to be able to hire the next developer that you want in your team, or the next product manager that you want in your team. So really understanding this action and consequence perspective from both sides.
Yeah. And I think, this is working quite well if you have a small team and there's like just one office location, everyone is there. But on the other side, if you look at like maybe Series B, C companies, when you grow bigger, like let's say at Pleo, we were 1,000 people in different markets. It's becoming more complex, right? Because then it's not that you just can sit together having a beer or a pizza, but it's more about connecting the teams across borders, right? So I think something I really liked that we actually copied from Klarna back then is building, like, let's call it little task force, right? So you have like kind of groups, and I also talked about this in a previous episode with Dima, which is actually coming from a product thing where you're running sprints, but you have like sales team in there, you have the product team, you have marketing, you have all the teams together in one group. And then you're discussing, okay, what are we going to work on in the next upcoming days, and who has what kind of roles? And then you actually working on one goal all together. So it's not that every team has its own goal, but there's one goal for all of them. And then I think it's also more clear to a salespeople that this feature is now the most important thing that they work on, and not feature ABC in the end.
100%. This task force is an incredible idea, and I've seen as well in other companies. I also helped another company here in Munich with this process. And it's about, as I said, bringing people and making a partnership of the departments. Because as soon as it grows, as you said, we don't have just sales teams. You also have customer success. Then you have onboarding. Then you have your product marketing team. Then you have also your marketing team. Then you have your user research. Then you have your product managers. You have the tech side. You have so many different little teams here and there that they need to communicate with each other. So creating these task forces or creating these update meetings to make sure that everybody is aligned on the priorities, that then these people can transfer it to their teams. It's exactly one of these small processes that we can implement on the day-to-day that can help this a lot.
I mean, looking back, I think one of the problems that we had also at Pleo was that there was like several tools, right? So you had like one guy was using CRM, then there was like a Notion page somewhere, and then you had like Slack, and it's like a mess of communication. So I think especially when it comes to developing the right products, it's super important to have a source of truth, and to also gather, like make a sales team aware of the importance of this data, right? So do you have like any best practices here? Like, is there any special tool or like strategy how you can make sure that all the information goes to the right direction and helps actually the product team to develop the right features?
Yeah, there's tons of tools out there. One of my favorites is Product Board. I think that's really has a lot of integrations, which helps out with this problem of multiple tools being used by multiple teams. But sorry, but my the best practice, and it's a very bold opinion, but I really believe that it is just the product manager's job and main task, and really making sure that everything, every feature, every request, every problem, every solution, everything goes through the product manager. And people often think, oh, but that takes more time. It just appears that it takes more time, but you kind of need to have a gatekeeper in regards to all of these ideas, all of these perspectives, all of these points that are coming, and the product manager is the one supposed to decide what is prioritized, and this person knows who is our user, what is a company goal, what is the product vision, what has priority, why is this important. It's really the person in communication as well, for example, in these task forces with all of the other departments, understanding what needs to be done now. Also from a technical perspective, sometimes you have to work on technical debts, right, as well in the company. So you need to understand and prioritize those things. And with so many people and so many departments that each of them have their own KPIs, each of them have their own OKRs, each of them have their own goals, this person is the one responsible for prioritizing that. So for me, the best practice is just make sure to train and to have your product manager understand what is the goal out of this squad or out of the whole product, depending on their responsibilities, and that this person is able to make these decisions on a day-to-day. And then when it comes to the tools, there's multiple tools around the market that, depending on the ones that you're using within the company, you can actually help out, can actually put together it or find the best one that would fit. But there's multiple tools. Just one of my favorite is Product Board, just for the simplicity and for connecting all of these different ones in the market together, and it really helps on bringing the teams together as well.
Yeah. Looking to our audience here in the podcast, Bruna, we have lots of salespeople, also founders and managers listening in. What is something, when I'm working in sales, what can I do in my demos to help the product team? Like, is there any specific questions I can ask, or is there anything, like, let's say, asking product people to join the demo, for example? That's something I really loved back then. I really enjoyed it. Also listening how they explain the product. What would be your recommendation for sales teams? Like, what should they do to help the product team?
I love this question, and the best thing that you guys can do, that you guys that are listening to the podcast, is just ask for the problem. Try to understand the problem of the user, and not the feature that they want. If you already manage to do that on a day-to-day, it's already half of the way is done, half of the work is done, and a lot more product managers will be happy. So this will definitely improve the communication. And secondly, don't be afraid of product. Don't be afraid of tech. Go for it. Try to understand it. And often one question I love to ask is, can you try to explain it to a 5-year-old? So go to your tech people and just say, hey, your product manager or your CTO, however way big of your company is, your head of engineering, and just say, hey, could you explain this to me as if I would be a 5-year-old? And you would be impressed with the answers you get. It's also one of the questions I love to ask on interviews, by the way. So should take this on and see how people answer, because people can be very creative.
That's funny because I was actually also using this for my sales team back then for the outreach, and I said like, well, how would you explain it to your grandmother? Like,
exactly, it's the same thing.
Yeah, that's funny. Yeah, cool. I think that helps a lot, and it also reminds me of something in my demos back then, because when I've asked the customers about we were selling the credit cards at Pleo, right? So it was the software connected to the credit cards, and when you're asking them like about the feature, they always mentioned we need an OCR technology. So we wanted software to read out the receipt. And when you ask like, okay, why do you think you need that? It's like always because of the data quality, because we want it to be automated. And I said, yeah, we don't have OCR, but our cards is actually getting the transactional data directly from the cash machine. So it's like 100% correct data, but they don't know that this technology actually existed. So it's like, if you ask them, they said, we need OCR, but OCR is always like inaccurate, right? So it's like always like just 95%. So our technology was actually better, but they never knew that it existed. So I think that's a good example of how important it is to what you mentioned, to understand the problem and not to develop an OCR feature, but actually better what they would love to have is 100% data accuracy. So looking for a solution that actually solves the problem to 100%. I think that's super important. Yeah.
Exactly. I mean, one of my favorite authors and favorite books is Start With Why. I mean, from Simon Sinek. I think a lot of people here as well know it.
Yeah.
But if you always start with why, understand the problem first and why, and that goes not only for this, but also, as I mentioned in the beginning of the podcast, on the management level, right?
Yeah.
So you as a founder that you're listening to this, make sure you're aligned to your why. Everybody in the company understand your why, and don't be afraid of your why, and to really communicate, because the more you communicate on your all hands, on your updates, your weekly updates, bi-weekly updates, the more all the rest of the team as well will know which direction the company is going. And this is also another step towards this North Star of the business, of really aligning all of the teams together.
And that's also helping the sales teams, right? Because then the customer asking for a certain feature and you know that you're not going to develop it because of your strategy, you can clearly communicate it to the customer, and then they also know, okay, maybe it's not the right fit, right? And you go with someone else instead. That's also something I think people always are afraid of, getting a no in sales, but I think it's super, super important, because otherwise you would get customers that actually not helping you, and more, you mentioned the customer success teams that's going to create problems in the CS later, right? So because they cannot properly be onboarded and stuff like this. So yeah, I agree completely here.
The beauty is when you know how to say no. And I know it's really tough to say no to a customer. You see revenue there and you're like, oh my God, how can I cannot say no to this. It's money coming in. But when you have the power, of course, you have a product market fit, you know who your ICP is. It will just create problems to say yes to customers that really don't fit, and especially down the road. So, and one of the things I also really like to say is the moment you start building something, you'll never stop maintaining it. So it's also one of those things that you have to think about when you just say, oh, but it's just one feature, it's just one thing in the product. Well, but then the team will forever have to maintain it. And that will then mean resources, that will then mean costs. So really think a lot before adding new things or adding new ideas or new perspectives for new customers, unless the whole company is aligned on this.
Yeah. I think I understand a lot of salespeople when they see it, you just mentioned, like they see the revenue, and it's so hard to say no to the revenue when you know that's actually my target and also my salary in the end, right? So I think what I've seen a lot lately is also the transition of new biz to like a hybrid role, so that they're also responsible for growing the customer. And I think then it's making more sense to also selling clean deals, right? So it's like, if I know that the customer will not be happy and I cannot grow him in the end, then you also start thinking of it, right? I think it's always about how you put the sales strategy and how you're trying to motivate your teams, right?
I love that. I actually really like that because it changes as well the perspective
Yeah.
of your incentives. And I do see there is a shift in the market. I mean, you can say better as well, but I really see a shift in the sales roles and organizations um, more and more, and really owning the customer, as you said, from the beginning to the end. So it's not really just one specific, I need to close it and then I'm done with it,
Yeah.
but more really, is this valuable for my customer? Is this interesting for them? Is it going to bring this value? Is there a chance for me to upsell them later on?
Yeah.
Instead of just saying, hey, here it is, and I'm out.
Yeah. I think what's also super important is like, if you think about products like that you really love, normally it's products that are quite simple. So if I think of a software, I've never loved a software that had like 1,000 features, because then it's overwhelming, right? What you want to have is like a simple product that solves your pain, or it's like a solution for your problem that you have. So I think also what you just described is like, from a sales perspective, also make sure to understand that you don't need like thousands of features, but you need the right ones to actually solve the customer's pains, right?
Exactly. And it's really that goes completely to the side of understand your user.
Yeah.
Understand who is your ICP, and don't be scared of saying no to what falls out of it, because there's plenty of things you can improve within a small product. There's plenty of things you can do with such a niche product. And a lot of founders or a lot of companies come in and they say, well, but I want to do this and I want to do that and I want to solve this and I want to solve that. Yeah, but try to narrow it down even more, because then you can, the more you grow, the more you can also grow your product.
Yeah.
But you cannot fulfill all the needs for everybody at the same time. And
True.
That will also help your sales team. That will help the product team. That will help your business. And you can always partner. And also, I think this is also another point from business development that we started in the beginning of the podcast, but also on the product and the sales side, is that you can partner with your competitors as well. Don't be scared of your competitive products. Maybe there's something that they're better than you and you're better than them.
Yeah.
And that could be complementary to each other, even from a strategic perspective with markets as well.
Yeah.
So don't be scared of that, and embrace this uniqueness, and try to find really the small part that makes you unique, and focus on that. Don't run away from it.
Yeah, I love that point, because it remembers me also on like the story that I experienced at Pleo when I was on a fair, and then I met like the CEO of one of our competitors, and I was talking to him. We had like a beer after the fair, and then I asked him like, what do you think? Like, how would you compare the products? What do you think? What is your USP? What is ours? And then he looked at me and said, you know what? I never considered you as a competitor. And it was like, okay, that's strange. Like, why? Can you explain to me?
Yeah.
And he was like, it's like your ICP is like the SMB market, and our product is starting where your product is ending. And that really changed something in my mind. And then we actually sent customers to each other's directions when he said, okay, you're not the right customer for us. Please talk to Dominic. And the other way around, when I had like a huge client and I know we couldn't really solve the problems, say, maybe you take a look at that product and I will make an introduction. And also from the customer perspective, they were like, okay, that's quite weird, but I'm enjoying this because you're telling me the truth. And they would actually be more happy that you sent them the right way.
100%. We had the same in Pipedrive with Salesforce, right? I mean, right now Pipedrive is way bigger, but at the time, it was very much focused on small teams. So it didn't make sense that sometimes we got such a big company and we could not fulfill their needs. And we said, well, I think Salesforce is the better solution for you. And it hurts to say, right? It's really like, oh my God, I'm losing this customer. It's such a big one, but it will not work. And the same thing vice versa. So it's the moment that you're able to say and understand and have everybody in the team be aware of this, of who is your user, which is the center of everything, then you can scale the company and grow the company in ways that I think founders cannot even imagine.
True. Now we're already recording half an hour, Bruna, so we're coming to the end of the episode already. But I have one more question that I would like you to ask, because in the end, I also want to inspire people and, get a bit of your personality out there. So maybe you can share a bit about your career back then. If you look back on it, you already mentioned Simon Sinek, but maybe you have some other advice here for people that listen to the episode that you would like to share that really had an impact on your career. And I think I'm really excited about this question for you because looking to your background, being a lawyer, then going into product and business development, I think it's quite interesting to understand what was driving you and what helped you in your career progression.
That's a great question. For me, I think it's people. More and more, it's people. I have had the honor of having great mentors throughout my career, and really that became friends, and until today are mentors for me, and that always encouraged me. So I would also say, everybody try to find a mentor. If it's a friend, if it's someone that it is that you look up to or that you want to achieve, or someone that sees something in you that you don't even know that you have inside you, just embrace that and ask questions and don't be afraid to be vulnerable. And this was with me, with at the time my boss in Pipedrive, Tom McCarty, and he opened my career. He opened my eyes. He saw something in me that I didn't see, and he just pushed me. And this is really what I do with everybody as well that works with me. And I try to just be whatever I can do to help. And whenever I see a light in someone, I try to make it brighter. So don't be scared of that. Don't be scared of exploring what you're good at, what you're not good at. You won't be great at everything. And really, this is the case. So just focus on that and be kind to everybody around you. And a helping hand, it's always another helping hand. And also don't be scared of challenges. I think this is really my biggest lessons as well with Simon Sinek and with my first of the many mentors I've had throughout my career.
Yeah, that's a great advice, Bruna. And you just described perfectly what leadership is for me. So looking for lights in people and then trying to lighten them up. I think it is the best skill you can have as a leader. So thanks for the advice. Thanks for talking about product and sales strategies here and how we can better align the teams. Maybe we will meet up, Bruna, in some of the roundtables in Munich or in Berlin. We also have a very good community, Women in SaaS, that is actually doing roundtables in Munich as well. So hope to talk to you soon, Bruna. And thanks for being my guest today.
Thank you, Dominic.
Übrigens, dieser Podcast wurde dir präsentiert von SDRs of Germany, der Vertriebscommunity für den Dachmarkt. Wenn du auf der Suche bist, um dich mit anderen Vertrieblern auszutauschen und deine Karriere im Turbo vorantreiben möchtest, dann werde Teil unserer coolen Community. Alle Infos unter www.sdrsofgermany.com.